At some point, she's going to wake up and realize you were different, that you were the one man who truly saw her for who she was, who stood by her, who gave her a sense of safety in a world full of uncertainty. But by then, you won't be waiting. By then, you'll have leveled up, moved forward, and become the man you were always meant to be. Without her, she thought. The grass was green, thought she had all the time in the world to figure things out. Thought you'd always be an option. But time has a way of revealing hard truths. And when she finally understands what she lost, it won't be a moment of happiness. It'll be a sinking realization, a regret that gnaws at her, a silent pain she won't be able to shake today. We're breaking down the moment she finally understands what she let go of, why walking away was your ultimate power move, and how embracing your own worth ensures you never find yourself in this situation again. Let's get into it. Number 1, the unexpected. The unexpected awakening. Awakening. At first, she doesn't notice. She's living her life caught up in distractions, thinking you'll always be around. Maybe she assumes the connection you shared will always be within reach, like a book left on a shelf there when she wants to pick it up again. But one day, out of nowhere, something shifts. Maybe it's a song, a place, or just an empty moment. And suddenly she feels it, the absence, the void. That's when it begins. At first, she brushes it off. A passing thought, a fleeting memory, but then it keeps happening. A familiar scent reminds her of the way you used to hold her close. A phrase someone else says isn't nearly as comforting as when it came from you. She scrolls through her phone, half expecting a message from you, only to remember that the silence has stretched on for weeks, maybe even months, and with each passing day, the reality sets in deeper. You're no longer there. She starts to replay things in her mind the way you always listen, truly listened, when she spoke the way you never had to raise your voice to be heard, because your presence alone commanded respect. The way you always had a calm, steady energy, never overreacting, never driven by impulse, but moving through life with purpose. At the time, she may have mistaken your stability for predictability. Maybe she thought she needed something more exciting, not realizing that excitement fades, but depth remains. And now she feels it. The loss, it's no longer just an idea, it's an ache, a sinking realization that the kind of man you were doesn't come around often because you weren't just another guy. You were the one who treated her with respect, but never begged for her attention. The one who gave without keeping score, but knew when to walk away. The one who didn't try to control her, yet made her feel safe in ways she never fully appreciated until now. And yet, the cruel irony of life is that we often recognize the value of something, only when it's no longer ours, to claim Marcus Aurelius once said, "Loss is nothing else but change, and change is nature's delight." That's the part that stings the most. Realizing that while she was figuring things out, life kept moving forward, and you didn't stay stuck in the past. You embraced the philosophy that a Stoic man does not wait to be chosen. He chooses himself. You kept growing, evolving, stepping into a better, stronger version of yourself. She wonders if she should reach out, if there's still a chance, but something stops her. Maybe it's pride, maybe it's the fear of finding out that you've already moved on. And deep down, she knows the version of you that once hoped she'd see your worth is gone. The man you are now, he doesn't need her validation. He doesn't need closure. He learned to be at peace with what was and what is. And that's the paradox when she finally realizes you were the one. It's too late, not because you're punishing her, not because you're bitter, but because you've outgrown the chapter where she was the main character. Now the one who truly needed to change is her, and that realization will stay with her far longer than your absence ever will. Number 2, the flashbacks hit differently. She finds herself staring at. The flashbacks hit differently, the ceiling late at night. her mind drifting to moments she once brushed off the way you listened, not just hearing her words, but truly understanding what she meant, how you never had to raise your voice to be heard, because your presence alone carried weight, the way you walked with quiet confidence, never trying too hard, never seeking validation, just being a man who knew his own worth. Back then, she didn't think much of these things. Maybe she even took them for granted, mistaking your steadiness for predictability, your patience for passivity. She thought those small things didn't matter, that they weren't the spark, the thrill, the excitement she thought she wanted, but now they're the very thing she craves, because in a world filled with shallow conversations and fleeting connections, she realizes that what she had with you wasn't just something, it was everything, and she starts to notice the difference the way others talk, but don't really listen, the way some men react out of impulse, instead of thinking things through the way others try too hard to impress, yet lack the quiet strength that you carried effortlessly, and that's when it hits her. What she once had was rare. What she once overlooked was exactly what she needed most, but life doesn't. Grant rewinds. There's no undo button, no way to go back and change the choices that led her here. A man of value doesn't demand appreciation. He doesn't beg to be noticed or chase after those who fail to see his worth. He simply is. He embodies his value through action, through presence, through an unwavering sense of self. He doesn't need to announce his worth. He lets time do that for him, and time has done exactly that. Now she's left with flashbacks of the way things used to be, and the realization that what she once considered just the way you were was actually what set you apart. She may try to move on, but the memories will linger, because some losses aren't just losses, they're lessons, and this one will stay with her for a long, long time. As we reflect on missed value and unrecognized virtue, how often do we overlook the qualities that bring meaning to our lives? Perhaps this story resonates with you or reminds you of someone whose worth became clear. Only in their absence, share your thoughts. In the comments, have you ever realized someone's true value after they were gone? How did it shape your approach to relationships? Your insights enrich this conversation and help others appreciate the quiet strength and authenticity that often go unnoticed. Let's discuss and learn from each other. Number 3, the empty space. The empty space you left behind. Your presence was once taken for granted. Now your absence is allowed. At first, she doesn't even realize it. Life moves forward, distractions keep her occupied, and she assumes you'll always be within reach. Just a call, a text, a moment of weakness away. But slowly, reality sets in. She finds herself looking for you in places you used to be, in conversations with other men, in the way someone else speaks, or the way they laugh. Yet no matter how hard she tries, nothing fills the space you left behind. It's in the quiet moments that it hits the hardest, the way you used to ground her when life felt overwhelming. How your presence had a certain stillness to it, a sense of security she didn't even know she needed. She remembers the way you listened, not just nodding along, but actually absorbing her words. She replays the way you carried yourself, never desperate for attention, never needing to prove yourself, just existing in your own strength. She thought those things were just who you were now. She realizes they were what set you apart. She starts to understand that what she mistook for stability was actually rare. She assumed she could find it again, but now, as she compares every interaction, every new connection to what she had with you, she realizes it's not the same. Others talk, but they don't listen. The way you did others show up, but they don't carry the same presence. Others try to impress her, but they lack the effortless confidence of a man who doesn't need validation. That's when she starts to feel it. The regret for not appreciating the way you move through life, with purpose, Regret for thinking she had all the time in the world to figure things out. Regret for assuming that your patience would last forever. But the truth is, a man of value doesn't wait. He doesn't beg to be seen. He doesn't chase what isn't his. He walks away with dignity and lets time reveal his worth. Marcus Aurelius once said, "The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way." And in your absence, she now faces the truth. She was the one who needed to grow to change, to understand what she had before it slipped through her fingers. But it's too late, not because you're punishing her, not because you're playing games, but because you've outgrown the version of yourself that once hoped she'd see your value. She will try to move forward. She will meet new people. But every so often, when the conversations feel shallow and the connections feel temporary, she will remember, and that empty space, it will remain. Not because she can't find someone else, but because she can't find another. You, number 4, the man you've become without her. She expected you to fall apart. Maybe. The man you've become without her. She thought you'd drown in regret, replaying old memories, waiting for a sign that she wanted you back. She might have assumed you'd be checking your phone late at night, hoping for her name to pop up. But instead, you leveled up. You've been building, growing, evolving into a version of yourself. Even she wouldn't recognize. At first, she didn't notice she was too caught up in her own world, thinking you'd always be there, frozen in time, waiting. But then something changed. Maybe she saw you looking different, more confident, more at peace, more focused. Maybe she heard about your success, how you've been thriving, living with purpose, moving forward without hesitation, and that's when the realization starts to sink in. She remembers the man you were when she left, the one who gave without asking for much in return, the one who provided stability, patience, and understanding. But now you've become something more. You no longer seek validation, no longer waste energy chasing what isn't meant for you. You walk with certainty, with an unshakable sense of self. And that's when she understands. She didn't just lose a man, she lost the man you could have been. For her, Marcus Aurelius once said, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." And that's exactly what you did. You didn't let lost find you. You used it as fuel instead of drowning in self-pity. You embraced discomfort, you faced your pain, and you turned it into something greater. That's what a true Stoic does. He doesn't crumble when life takes something away. He adapts, he improves, he becomes untouchable. And now, when she thinks of you, it's no longer with indifference, it's with curiosity, with regret, with the sinking feeling that she let go of something. She didn't fully understand at the time, but the man you've become, he no longer waits for her recognition. He doesn't need closure, he doesn't need an apology, because the best response to loss isn't bitterness, it's transformation. Your progress is your silence, your success is your answer. And when she finally realizes who you've become, it won't be a moment of pride for you. It will be a moment of clarity for her, because now she sees the truth. She had something rare, something real, and she let it slip away. And this time, you're not looking back. Now, I encourage you to engage with this narrative, like this video. If it resonated with you, leave a comment with your thoughts, or simply type "transformation is my response" in the comments. Comments to affirm your commitment to personal evolution. How have you transformed challenges into opportunities for growth in your own life? Share your experiences to inspire and connect with others on similar paths. Let's continue to learn from each other and grow stronger together. Number 5, when she encounters. When she encounters a lesser man, she starts dating again. Convinced she'll find someone better, someone new, someone different at first. Everything feels fresh, exciting, like a chance to rewrite the past. But then she realizes something. The conversations feel lighter, emptier. He doesn't listen the way you did. He nods along, but doesn't truly hear her. He speaks, but his words lack weight. She used to think patience was just something you had, that it was normal for a man to stay composed when things got difficult. But now she sees the difference. This new man reacts instead of responds. He gets frustrated over small things. He lacks the steady presence she once took for granted. She finds herself explaining things you would have just understood, and suddenly it's clear. She wasn't just losing a man, she was losing a mindset. It's only now that she sees what set you apart. It wasn't just the way you carried yourself, the way you never needed to prove your worth. It was how you approached life itself. You weren't just a man in her life, you were a presence, a grounding force. Someone who moved with purpose, who didn't seek validation, who remained unshaken, regardless of circumstances. The new man he doesn't have. That he's inconsistent, he's distracted, he lacks the quiet confidence of someone who knows exactly who he is. She starts to compare, even if she doesn't want to. And with every small realization, the truth becomes harder to ignore what she dismissed. Before your patience, your emotional control, your ability to navigate challenges with wisdom was actually what made you irreplaceable. She assumed these things were standard, but now she understands. A stoic man doesn't compete. He doesn't try to prove he's better. He doesn't need to because his presence alone sets a standard few can match when he walks away. He does so with quiet certainty, knowing that time will reveal what words never could. And as she sits across from this new man, smiling politely, pretending not to feel the emptiness creeping in, she finally understands what she let go of. And the worst part, she knows she can't find another you, because men like you aren't found, they are. The pain of realizing she misjudged you. Forged number 6, the pain of realizing she misjudged you. She starts to remember not just the good times, but the moments she pushed you away, the times she picked fights over things that didn't matter, the times she doubted you when all you ever did was show up for her. Back then, she was convinced she was right. Maybe she thought you were too calm, too steady, too predictable. Maybe she mistook your patience for weakness, your self-control for a lack of passion. She thought she needed more excitement, more intensity, more of something she couldn't even define at the time, but now she sees the truth. She sees that the things she once criticized were actually the things that made you different, the way you never overreacted, how you remained grounded, even when she tested you. She called it indifference, but now she understands. It was wisdom. You never let emotions control you. You never played games. You carried yourself with a quiet strength. Never desperate, never chasing you, didn't argue to win. You chose your battles, W.I.L.E. And when she tried to provoke a reaction, you didn't give her one. Not because you didn't care, but because you knew better. And now she remembers those moments differently. The time she called you boring when in reality, you were just peaceful. The time she tried to make you jealous, but you never took the bait. The time she wanted you to fight for her, only to realize too late that real men don't fight to be chosen. They simply walk away when they're no longer valued. She finds herself thinking about you in ways she never did before because the new men she meets, they react instead of respond. They lose their temper over small things. They try to prove themselves constantly as if they have something to prove. She thought she wanted intensity, but now she understands that intensity without stability is just chaos. And the man who was once her safe place, the one she could always count on, is no longer there. Regret is a heavy weight to carry. She realizes she misjudged you, but worse than that, she misjudged herself. She thought she was making the right choices, that she had all the time in the world to figure things out. But time has a way of revealing what the moment hides. Make her feel you even when you're not there. And now, when she looks back, she sees herself clearly, how she pushed away the very thing she needed the most. And you don't need to prove her wrong. You don't need to seek validation or try to make her see what she lost. Time will do that for you. Life will do that for you, because a man of value doesn't. Chase, he doesn't beg to be understood. He simply moves forward, knowing that those who fail to recognize his worth will one day have no choice but to remember it. And when that day comes, when she sits with the weight of her own choices, she'll realize something even more painful. You didn't just move on, you leveled up. And the version of you that once wanted her to understand no longer exists. Regret has a way of reshaping memories, turning what once seemed insignificant into something profound. But for the man who knows his worth, there's no need to dwell on the past or seek validation from those who failed to see his value. His growth speaks for itself. Number 7, the silent strength that speaks volumes. She expected you to be bitter. Maybe she thought you'd lash out, try to get a reaction, show her how much she hurt you. She imagined you posting cryptic messages, throwing subtle jabs, making it obvious that you were struggling without her. Maybe she even thought you'd beg that you'd chase that. You'd do whatever it took to prove she made a mistake. But you didn't. You carried yourself with quiet confidence. No passive-aggressive posts, no attempts to remind her of your worth, no desperate efforts to win her back. Just silence, and that silence says everything. She assumes you're just holding back, that maybe you're waiting for the right moment to reach out. But time passes, and you remain steady. No emotional outbursts, no late-night messages, no breadcrumbs trying to lure her back in, just a man who is fully in control of himself, who refuses to let anyone else dictate his worth, and it unsettles her because silence forces her to sit with her own thoughts. It leaves her with questions she can't answer. Did he ever really need me? Why hasn't he reacted? Why does his absence feel so much heavier than his presence ever did? The truth is, a man of value doesn't need to announce his pain. He doesn't need to prove his strength through words or actions designed to get attention. His silence is enough. His discipline speaks louder than any emotional reaction ever could. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "Waste no more time arguing about what a good man should be. Be one." And that's exactly what you've done. Your silence isn't an act of revenge, it's an act of self-respect. You understand that a man who truly values himself doesn't chase someone who walked away. He doesn't try to prove his worth to someone who failed to see it in the first place. Instead, he moves forward, he builds, he grows, he becomes even better, not out of spite, but because that's just who he is. And that realization, it lingers because now she sees that you were never dependent on her for happiness. She sees that your self-worth was never tied to whether or not she stayed. And as time stretches on, she starts to understand the weight of